In this video, I'm going to share 5 techniques that you can use to instantly improve the lighting in your scenes, both indoor and outdoor. Even if you think you know what I'm going to say, I want to encourage you to stick around because there are some pretty cool practical tips found in every technique. I'll be using examples from a recent short film I DP'd on called Liminality. On the camera front, I went with the Sony FX3 for its portability and because it pairs really well with the E-mount Cooke SP3s. This is a dream combo on the gimbal, and the extra in-body image stabilization was super helpful for a lot of the handheld movements. I also used a Helios 44-2 in some of the dream sequences and a 90mm Vespid macro for some of the close-ups. Tip number 1. White windows. By white windows, I mean diffused windows. Shooting with open windows in the frame can be an exposure nightmare, and a technique I often use is to cover a window up completely with diffusion on the outside. Not only is this a great way to introduce soft light into the room, but it also enables you to get a window in the frame without revealing the outside. Using a diffused window, I lit a few shots in this room using only one light. On the outside, we set up the Alien 300C, a new full-color panel light from Nanlite, shooting through an 8x8 half silk. We still had to block off any direct sunlight hitting the window, which gave me more control over the scene. The larger window meant we had one big soft source as a key light, so I didn't use any additional lights except for a 5-in-1 reflector to bounce and block light. This way I could shoot wide, medium and close-up without moving the light. Simply adjust the intensity where needed. One of the reasons the light is extra soft is because I had the softbox on the Alien. In other words, the light is being double diffused, which leads me to tip number 2, double diffusion. This is by far one of my favorite ways to light, especially when I have to light a bigger area with soft light. Adding an extra layer of diffusion with some distance between your main source softens the light even more and enables you to enlarge a smaller source with something larger. The first scene I used this was on the close-ups for the piano sequence. Both me and the director decided that we wanted all the shots here to be on the gimbal, which meant big movements, and a big softbox would quickly get in the way. The solution was to mount an 8x8 scrim overhead and shoot through it with the Alien 300C, giving off beautiful soft light on both the face and hands. To keep some shape in the face, we put the light more on the back side to let it gently wrap into the shadow side, and the scrim does all the magic here. On the wider shots, I simply started without the silk and boomed it up as high as possible. Another place where this also worked incredibly well is in the final hospital scenes. The space was incredibly tight and there was no way we could fit a big softbox overhead, so it made sense to utilize the rails above and tie the 8x8 half silk to it with the Alien 300C on a boom overhead, delivering the goods. A panel light works great for these scenarios because it's easy to fit into tighter spaces. Double diffusion meant we had to dial up the intensity quite a bit, and I think we maxed it out at around 85%, taking into account that we also battled some ambient light from the outside and a bright Forza 500 Mark II with a Fresnel, serving as a direct edge light, also casting these shadows. If you just break down the wide, you can see how the light is again slightly behind to leave some space for shooting shadow side. In other words, the 8x8 is spreading the light out in this area, but still leaving the camera side in the dark. The backside had no lighting source of any sort, so it was necessary to bring in a fill, and here we opted for an Alien 150C, shooting double diffused through a 5-in-1 diffusion ring. Simple but effective. In the close-up, all the fill you see from this side is coming from the Alien 300C through the scrim, with the Forza 500 Mark II creating the edge light. This overhead setup worked so well that for the remaining shots we could simply move the light around and use negative fill where necessary. Which leads me to the next tip, subtracting light. On bigger sets, we use flags and floppies, but quite often a simple 5-in-1 reflector on the black side can do the job. In this film, there were 3 scenes where it truly made a big difference. On the second close-up where we revealed the nurse's face, there was nowhere she could stand without being filled in by the big soft light coming from above. So a 5-in-1 ring on the black side held up by a lighting assistant was all that we needed to get some shape back into the face, with the camera on the shadow side, but the remaining light still spilling over onto the main character's hand. The second was this close-up we shot at an active gypsum plant, where using the right angles made it look like something from another planet. The plant really came alive in blue hour after the sunset, but this also meant that everything started looking flat. I decided to motivate the last light with an Alien 300C handout from the left and remove some of the natural fill bouncing from behind with a 5-in-1. And if you compare the before and after, you will see how much more contrast we added by lighting more from one side and taking light away from the opposite side. This same 5-in-1 was used in the writing sequence on the camera side, since some of the light was bouncing back from the door. On a quick side note, if you haven't heard yet, I recently launched my own Resolve color grading course. In the bonus chapter, I'm going to do a grading breakdown of my favorite shots from this film. So if you're interested, check it out at the link below. Tip number 4 is the mixing of light. By mixing light, I'm not just talking about color contrast, but about using different temperature lights from the same direction. In this dream sequence, we used the same room from the writing scenes, but placed the actress right next to the window. This time, instead of just one light from the outside, I brought in an extra Forza 500 bicolor and set it to 2700 Kelvin, hitting the subject from behind to create a warm edge light. This had a pleasing effect on the hair, making it appear vividly red. The alien was set to 5600 Kelvin, just neutralizing the warmth in the face to a natural state. This technique is a great way to add warmth into the scene without going full orange on the skin tone. The Alien series can do Kelvin temperature from 2700 all the way to 12,000, plus green and magenta shift. But being a full color light means you can go really warm or cool if you need to. While we're on this scene, since we moved the subject closer to the window, we had to bring down the exposure quite a bit, which means the rest of the room got dark quite quickly. This leads me to tip number 5, balance. It's easy to get carried away with contrast, but sometimes losing balance in the contrast ratio can quickly make your scene feel lit or simply lacking. A technique I often use to introduce more lift into the scene is to bounce a light against the roof. In this case, I used an Alien 150C on a softbox and it gave me just the right amount of balance. If you compare it with the test shots, you'll see how much it helps. This same principle applies when filming nighttime exteriors. It's one thing to light up the subject with a key light and an edge light, but the background is just as important, and here we use 2 lights in the back to create some balance. With nighttime exteriors, you always want to go a little brighter and bring it down in post to keep the noise floor to a minimum. The final touch here was adding fake rain, which presented its own challenges. Our team created a custom rain machine just for the shoot, and if you ask me, it worked really well. One of my favorite features of the Alien series is the fact that they are IP55 rated, which means it can hold its own while standing in the rain. Both the 300C and 150C got a proper wetting, and we had 0 issues. As you can see from the BTS, we double diffused the 300C again with a 5-in-1 diffusion circle, and the 150C didn't have any diffusion on to accentuate the raindrops as much as possible with hard light. This was one of the most enjoyable shoots I've ever been on, and it was only made possible with a great team behind me. I'm going to put the full credits in the description below, so go check them out. A massive thanks to Sony and Nanlite for sponsoring this video.